Hello everyone, Ryan here with Product Impressions Quarantine Edition. It's been a while since I've made any changes to my little desk setup here, but now that everyone is socially isolating, I am doing all of my work from home. Any socializing that I'm doing over the internet is being done through web cameras, and basically everything that I am doing is sitting at this desk. And so I thought that's probably not the best thing for me to be doing, constantly sitting all day long. So I decided to try something a little bit different. I've had good results with everything else that I bought for my desk from Vivo. So, there we are. This is a a sit-stand desk that I'm going to be replacing this old table from IKEA with an actual desk. So, let's pop this thing open and get everything together.
This is what everything looks like when it's unboxed. It's not too much to keep track of, and the instructions do a good job of showing the difference between all of the smaller pieces.
Alright, I've been using this Vivo sit-stand desk for several weeks now, and I must say, I really like it. If I get tired of sitting while I'm working, I can crank it up and stand up. If I'm tired of standing, crank it back down. They do have motorized options, but if the whole purpose of this is to get a little exercise and movement, I don't see any problem with having it crank up and down manually. I got the kind of narrowest one, which was still 43 inches wide. It is about the same width as the desk that I was using before, so my nice little mat still fits on top. A couple of things to notice is the hand crank over here. You can only position it while you are installing it in the first place. So mine is coming out horizontally towards the center of the desk while it is cranked all the way down. That can be slightly problematic because I've had to actually shift the keyboard tray further to the left in order to accommodate where this is. And you can't change the direction of this when it's cranked all the way down after you've installed it. So that is one thing to be aware of while you are setting up this table in the first place. You do need to be aware of what direction this handle is going to be facing as you're setting it up. Fortunately, there is a little bit of a gap between where it is all the way pressed in and the handle sticking across, and it is pretty much perfect to fit a keyboard tray bracket in there. That hasn't really made much of a difference to me because I tend to have everything shifted off to the right-hand side, so I'm still relatively centered here, and I have a little extra space on the tray off to the left-hand side. It does range, height-wise, this ranges from 30 inches for the tabletop when it's all the way down to 50 inches when it's cranked all the way up. The 30 inches I find a little bit too high. My arms would be angled too much to be using a keyboard or a mouse comfortably with it all the way down, so I'm very glad that I already have the keyboard tray. That brings it down to not a perfect, but a very good height. Now let's go ahead and crank this up. You might see the monitors and stuff shaking around. I've actually wedged my wallet underneath here in order to stop the right-hand monitor from shaking too much. But anyway, here it is going up. The handle normally lays flat. You can snap out the rotating part of the handle, and the entire thing comes away from the table, so you don't have to worry about slamming your hand against it or anything. All right, here we are cranked pretty much all the way up. This is higher than I would even normally stand at it, but I figured it was good for illustrative purposes. For one thing, as I was cranking it up, you probably saw that it shifts back and forth a little bit because there is no cross beam from one leg to the other, except for the top where it's actually connected to the table. This does let it shimmy a little bit. I don't think it's going to be too much of a problem, but who knows, it might end up being. Another thing to consider is you don't want to have too full of a cup of coffee or a glass of water on it while you are cranking it up and down. The shifting back and forth is going to make it slosh and spill. Some other points to consider while setting this up. You do need a drill to actually put the screws into the tabletop from underneath here. It did not, it came with all of the screws that you need, but you also have to drill pilot holes for a couple of the screws that need to go in, notably for the crank over here and for a center support here. I actually did not put the screws into the center support here because you would need to drill the pilot hole, and then it has rubber gaskets to absorb some of the shaking while it's moving. And you cannot actually line those up because once you put the gasket in there, you can no longer see where the hole is to put the screw. So at that point, it took me about an hour to get everything set up. I was a little bit tired. I decided not to even bother doing that, and it has been perfectly fine. So that seems to be optional, at least for the smallest table. If you get something much wider, then, just because of physics, weight in the center is going to be more of an issue, but I'm finding it's not a problem with the way that I have it set up right now. Another reason to crank it all the way up here is you can see this wonderful mess of cables back here. I've actually got power blocks back here for one for each monitor and another for the Type-C, USB-C hub that connects everything to a computer. I've tucked some of them up into the stand that I have for the monitor. It's got a bracket underneath here to brace it on the table. I've tucked a couple of them in there just to make sure that it's not putting too much strain on there, but I am going to need to do something to support all of that, get it cleaned up, because it doesn't look great like that. So that's an additional expense you might want to consider in buying one of these sit-stand desks. You're probably going to want a keyboard tray, and you're probably going to want some way of supporting all of the cables, or supporting/hiding all of the cables that are going to be hanging down in the back here. I do have something that I'm going to set up, so we'll see how it works. All right, with a couple of low-profile C-clamps and some scrap leather from the local craft store, I've got just one white cable hanging out here for the power supply. Hopefully this has been of some use to you. Usual YouTube stuff. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you very much. See you next time.